Hello, and welcome to episode 20 of Pinball in the Machine, a podcast by awakeners and for awakeners. Now, we're not doing the blurb these days because it's all on our website and there's more time for chat, but all that information is there on our website, pinballinthemachine.com. But let's crack on. I'm Tom, and I'm here with Greg. Greg, how are you doing?
Whoa. Hiya, Tom. Well, it's been a week, as usual, but this has been a week of the weeks, I think.
It's been
weeks. Amazing. Yeah, because since the last podcast, things have been opening up and moving on. And it feels, there are lots of developments, but it feels to me, and it has felt like this all week, although it's changed slightly, that it's time to pause the podcast after this one. It's kind of like the end of season one. And I didn't know what to do with that because I felt it was time. And yet my team had been telling me the podcast is important and they were going to write it, which it seems like they have. So why was I feeling like this? So I meditated on it and they said it's complete for the present. It's will be out there at the end of this session. It will be all there for those to find.
Yes.
And so this one will complete the info for now. And there's something, so that's that. And there was something from last week that really I meant to mention and it got past me. And it was about the compassion. What they told me when they told me about compassion, they said it starts with the self. It's compassion for the self first, because otherwise you're just a martyr or a victim.
Yeah.
Okay. So they want to talk more about that, or I would do this week. So aside from that, nothing much has happened.
Oh yeah, no, just a normal week then.
Yeah, normal week. Yeah.
Well, okay. So we're coming to the end of season one. So what do we have to leave it on a cliffhanger? That's what they do in the.
I hope not.
In Hollywood.
I hope we're going to leave it tidied up so that people can take something away from it. This is hard stuff. This is not let's tiptoe through the tulips and sit by the candle. This is hard stuff, but it's so important now.
I've got a story for you there because what I've been doing recently is actually just looking back on big life events that myself and my family have gone through in our lives, just thinking about the timelines that we spoke about. And I'll give you a really interesting indication. So you cast your mind back. I don't know if you remember when we first met, it must have been 2014. You probably put it out of your memory now.
I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
So anyway, we were having conversations because there was a piece that I couldn't put together, and it was causing me, some anxiety because I couldn't pick it, I couldn't put it together, and we talked it, we thrashed it through, and we constructed it, and it turned out it was a fear of, at the time there were some elements that were sort of controlling my life, and I was in a slightly vulnerable position, even though everything was very cordial and green lights everywhere. I just had this hunch that, the sword of Damocles was going to come down and just chop my head off. And you helped me because there's nothing really you can do practically in that situation other than think about exit strategies, formulate plans in your mind or on paper so that you don't feel trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you can operate and you can see what's going on. Well, God damn it. If, 5 years later, with no warning, the exact thing I'd at the time I thought catastrophized about actually happened, and all hell broke loose. But actually that event has been the foundation for a new life, a much more positive going forward. So I did create my own timeline in that instance.
You did.
And I'm starting to realize that I'm now looking back at all of these events and I'm just able to see where the track diverted. It's amazing.
But you can't see it from the other side.
No.
So that's what the trust in the process is.
Yeah, I think, and that's that. So anyway, so talking about trusting the process. So last week we talked about the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that other people tell ourselves, and we talked about questioning those stories.
Absolutely.
Is it the ego? Is it the highest? But what I wanted to get into a little bit more this week was the actual kind of the practical mechanics of actually how do we actually go about questioning everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you got for me there?
Oh, what have I got for you? Well, I guess the first thing I've got would be the why. Why is it so important? Okay. And coming back to the analogy I used last time, which was rats in a huge maze, and I mean a huge maze, and they're desperate to get to whatever they believe is important. Okay. Yeah. And they're going this way and they're going that way and they're bumping into this and this isn't working. And what do I do? And it gets more and more frenetic. And what they believe to be important are simply beliefs. And beliefs can be manipulated by repeating stories, as Goebbels knew very well. So when we question the stories, we shift our perspective. You just said it. When you look at the situation that you feared from this perspective, you say, oh, actually, that was brilliant because it's opened up all of these things.
Yes.
Okay. So we shift our perspective. And what we see is patterns start to emerge, which gives us an even greater shift in perspective. So I guess to question the stories, it always helps to start with a baseline, an established truth, let's say. And so I like things simple. I want to get something out there that we can use so that we can compare to. So how do we know? It's all about relationships. And so when I ask this question, whomever I ask, it's always the same answer. So now we have an established truth and it checks out. So the question I ask, and this is in boardrooms, this is in corporate training and stuff like that. The question is, what is the opposite of death? And the answer is life. Everybody knows the answer, right? Everybody knows this is true. And so we now have a baseline there we can compare everything to. This established truth about life and death is not true.
Yeah.
Now, the opposite of death is birth.
Yeah.
There is life before birth, and the law of correspondence, thank you, Hermes Trismegistus, is that there's life after death.
Yes.
Now, the important point of this is that if this universal truth is untrue, and everybody believes it, what else does everybody believe that's untrue? It starts us getting curious, and that's the key, to be curious. So as our perspective expands, we start to see the game, and then we can no longer go back. No. That's a shift, right? We become heretics. And that comes from the Greek word to choose. It means you choose what you believe. Yeah. And that's interesting because when you questioned the native the narrative of the Christians, they would torture you and kill you horribly. They'd burn you alive for being a heretic, right? Just because you chose to believe something other than the narrative. So what happens when you become, and by the way, they don't talk about heretics so much now. Now it's hate speech. That's the current heretic. It's hate speech. You go against the narrative. Well, that's hate speech. And the accomplice to that is misinformation. And PayPal has just tried to run that scam. And I think they've lost about $6 billion or something as a result. But that's another story.
And you don't get burned alive anymore. You just get completely shut down and
and bankrupted and everything else.
And ruined. Yeah. And
that's the one. So what we do when we start to question the narrative, we become social pariahs. Now, I'm making this sound irresistible, aren't I, really? Come on, everybody's going to want a piece of this. But here's the result, right? And you just nailed it. When we become social pariahs, what does that mean? It means we no longer connect with the masses. We're now entering a different timeline. We've just created an exit point just by questioning the narrative. It's not easy to question the narrative, you see, because everybody knows that the opposite of death is life. Everybody knows that banks lend money. They do not lend money. They don't. Not a penny. They buy securities. Check it out if you want to. But basically, when you start to question the narrative, society says, off you go. You don't belong here anymore. Guess what? You're free. You're free of the timeline.
Yeah. And let's be clear here. When you sort of say social pariah, you're not some kind of like hermit or incel kind of stuck in your room kind of going. You can still flow through modern day society
Oh,
all
yeah.
that you want to.
Yeah.
But there's an extra freedom to it. And this is the amazing thing. You're not looking at as somebody in a nice car and saying, oh, I wish I had a nice car like that. You're not looking at anything with envy or judgment. You're just assimilating all the information.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just collecting it so that you can ask yourself in real time what you genuinely think is true about it all.
And what you're looking for are the anomalies.
Yeah.
This is said, but that is done. The people who make the laws don't abide by the laws.
Yeah. And when you can be in that state as well, guess what? Your heart opens up because you're not bombarded with all the, the ego's not being hit constantly by all these different triggers. The heart opens up and out comes compassion.
There you go. So there's your first step, right? You start to question the narrative. And you can question any part of it, and you'll find that, behind the curtain is the same man. Okay. Then, once you become the social pariah, which is really what you're looking to do, you then, through your meditation practice, connect with your higher self, your team, whatever you want to call it. That takes the fear and the struggle away, because the team knows what's what. We don't.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this, so that's done. But then what happens is the team works through us. We express the divine compassion, which is what you've just said. Our vibration increases as a result. And here's the beautiful thing about this. We actually alter our own biology. We alter our DNA physically. Yeah. Okay? And this is the DNA that science lovingly refers to as junk DNA. It's like they said, like nature said, well, I don't know. We've put them together. There's a load of wires here. We don't know what they do. We'll shove them behind the skirting board and send them out.
And to be clear here, we're talking about epigenetics.
Yes.
Which in itself, needs a good read. I mean, there's some serious stuff behind there.
I would say it's essential, and for this reason. It was proved scientifically 20 years ago. Bruce Lipton, who was one of the forerunners in this field, he's a biologist and a lecturer and so forth. He was discovering this stuff in the 70s. But what he proved scientifically over 20 years ago is that our biology is the direct result. It's not affected by it is the direct result of our beliefs about our world. What he proved is that our genes do not switch themselves on or off. They adapt to our beliefs. And then the beliefs signal the cells to make different proteins, which alters our biology, literally, physically.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if that's the case, which it's proven to be, it would behove us to be careful about whom we let control the signals, either through the stories or what we now have is gene therapy. They've been tarting this thing up and pushing it out, saying, we want to find the gene that causes cancer or the gene that causes happiness. And if we can do this, and it's completely bogus, and it's been known to be bogus for over 20 years. So if people are talking to me about spike protein, I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. You're talking about gene therapy, which is bogus.
Yeah.
And what is happening now is that the gene therapy is bypassing our DNA. It's going to the RNA, which is the blueprint, which causes the cells to produce certain things. To me, that's a genetic mutation.
Yeah.
But they know it's bogus. So what's the story? That's where I've been digging around. And this was known, right, over 200 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you've got cases, haven't you, of, you've got cases of monks doing, physiologically incredible things, whether it be fasting for periods way longer than modern medicine would say is possible, going into trance-like meditative states for huge long periods. So they've managed to modify their own biology to do this.
We're all doing it.
Probably through meditation and vibration.
Yep, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're all doing it. And this is how we do it. We are the ones. We are the creators, right? So what happened was, this was 50 years before Darwin's survival of the fittest story, where dog eat dog, it's about acquisition and competition. There was a French biologist called Lamarck. And he saw the thing as a cellular learning curve through cooperation. And the more adaptable an organism is to its environment, the greater the chances of its survival. And this is epigenetics.
Yeah.
But the church declared it heresy. Oh, there's that word again. And Lamarck was ruined. Nobody took any notice of him. 50 years later, Darwin showed up. Oh, perfect. Now we got a dog eat dog. Let's acquire everything.
Yeah.
And what science has now proven through epigenetics is we are the creators. We create our own biology. The survival of the fittest is bogus. Now, Noam Chomsky said, he who controls the media, which is the narrative, the story, controls the mind. That's why we question the story. Now, the mind controls the beliefs control the DNA controls the cells, and the cells create our biology. So the story is absolutely essential. You question the narrative, that means you find the dots. You can't find the dots in the maze. They're just things. When you come above the maze, when your perspective changes, as you have done, you've said, oh, as I look back now, I see all those gates. I see all those incidents, right? You connect the dots, and that is what sets us free. And that's why it's been a secret. That's why the heretics were annihilated. And if you think there's justice, there's a maxim of law. There were a number of them. This is my favorite. Here it is. Let he who will be deceived be deceived. Now, if that sounds like justice to you, I'm sorry. Yeah. That is a get out of jail card for rape, pillaging, murder, anything.
So this obviously works backwards in terms of reflecting, but it also works forward, right? If you listen to yourself and you have a specific, say maybe you have a personal goal, something that you've made is truly important to you, you can now set your state towards it.
Yes. That's what Imagineering is. You start to envisage the world you want to live in. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
So you act as if. You say, look, if I want more compassion in the world, maybe I ought to be more compassionate.
Yeah.
And boom, you change your biology.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm telling you, I can feel it. I'm buzzing.
And not only are you then, in showing more compassion, you're helping other people change their stories.
Of course.
Then they change their timeline, or even just how you meet them with your vibration.
That's right.
Puts them into a state where they're better able to question, reset, change their timeline.
Yep.
It all just strings together.
It strings together. The thing that stops the questioning is that society will marginalize you. People will tell you you're crazy. People said, oh, Greg, you're scaring me. I'm thinking, be scared of the witches, but not those good Christians who are burning them alive, right? It's, how am I scaring anybody? I'm not doing this stuff. Okay, I'm just pointing out that the king is naked and baby, he is and always has been. So when you start to question it, society kicks back, it pushes back, and people who can't handle that stop questioning because it's a lot easier to go along with the narrative. But the timeline now, as we said last time about the schism, that those two timelines are in operation.
Yeah.
Okay. You choose, but you choose through your biology. You see, once you change your biology or start to change your biology, you change your timeline immediately. Your body is changing.
Yeah.
Wow. This is huge, Tom. This is the hugest thing I've ever found.
Wow. And we said we weren't going to have a cliffhanger, but. Okay, but actually, I want to. If we've got time, I would like to just do one more thing because this really hit me this week. We talked about that ultimate story. What is the opposite of death?
Yep.
And I don't know whether it was because I was thinking about that, but I had a very strong moment when I was journeying over last weekend, relating to somebody that, I loved dearly and died. And through what we've been doing, I was able to talk to them, be with them. Mm-hmm. And I swear, and you know how visual I am.
Yes.
And I could see every single little mannerism accurately of exactly how they were, every little detail. And best bit of it was I was meeting them as I am now, and they were then.
Yes.
And I felt like I knew them even better.
Mm-hmm.
I knew more. I knew what they were thinking. I knew more about them. And I just thought it was amazing. So I want to talk to you. But, and here's the kicker. You try and do that, but quite often grief just comes in and punches you in the face.
Yep.
And then you either can't go any further or it all dissipates. And we all, at times in our life, have to deal with grief. But where does grief come into all of this, do you think?
Grief is a story as well as a feeling. It's a bit like falling in love. And so we fall in love, we meet our significant other, and we feel amazing. Sometimes we lose the plot. We don't know what day it is. We can't eat. We can't sleep. That sort of stuff, right? And we put it down to them.
Yeah.
They are the ones, what happens is...
They've cast a spell on us.
Yes. And according to Ram Dass, we get addicted to the method. In other words, we need them to give us that feeling. So we become addicted to the method. The feeling is ours.
Yeah.
We can access that feeling, but we tell ourselves the story that it's them. It's the same with grief. When you get to the point that there's life before birth and there's life after death, there's nowhere to go. Okay, we drop the body, but life is eternal. And this took me back to when I was brought up as a Catholic, because they were telling me that if I obeyed these commandments, there's a guy, Father Sean O'Leary, who's done a lot of research on this, and he said nobody can prove that Moses ever existed. He was the greatest motivator that never existed. So apparently he's handed down these 10 commandments, right, which is from a vindictive God that you must love and fear, which is the basis of sadomasochism. But anyway, we simply drop the body at the end of this chapter, if you like, but the spirit goes on.
Absolutely.
It goes on. So you did a beautiful thing when you said, Greg, I want to talk about grief on the podcast. Is that okay? Because my sister had died, when we did podcast 4. And I said, yeah, let's do it. Well, that was, I think, on Monday when you sent me that message, or Tuesday, something like that. And on the Tuesday, my son was with me all day. There were signs all day that he was there. And he died over 13 years ago. And I thought I had grieved his death, but I hadn't. So I finally got to grieve it on Tuesday. And the following day on Facebook, and anybody who's on Facebook, there's a meme that goes around where there's a young guy with a flip chart. And he's looking, there's two. There's one at the top and one at the bottom. Same guy. And he says, you think it's this, it's this. And that is, the bottom one is my son.
Okay.
And I saw that on the following morning, but I hadn't seen it for months before. It had gone, out of my feed. And there it was the next day. And I thought, nice move, Jay. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the trick to this one is that the person that we feel the grief of or for hasn't gone.
No.
Their spirit is with us. And we connect by sitting quietly, setting our intention, quieting the mind, and opening the heart. And they're with us.
Yeah.
And and this week has been off the scale since Jay came in big time, and I managed to get the grief done. That was the killer, because it was sitting there and it was huge, and it's done. And it's been amazing. And now he and I are in contact, and he's showing me, he's showing up. I think, you little devil.
Yeah. Because there's no reason why my friend should have shown up as he did at the weekend. Other than it was time.
Yeah,
it was the right time. I didn't ask for it. It came in.
Mm-hmm.
Now we could go into. There's a whole piece here about how connected you and I are, and was there actually a set timeline here that I sort of instinctively knew we had to go off on. I need to think about that one.
Everything's connected. Everything is connected.
But I really got lots of very strong feelings of connection there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it all comes together.
And basically what my team has told me is that this now puts the thing in place. It's all there for people if they want to go back and listen again. All the things are there, particularly in the last 3 or 4 podcasts. They've been kicking.
It's been building.
Yeah.
It's been building. Yeah. And when we started it, we didn't plan for any kind of stepped progression. No. We were just shooting the breeze. But here we are now. Greg, at the end of season 1.
Here I am with no friends left.
Well, we can just be pariahs then.
Okay, then, yeah.
Well, listen, everyone. We're really glad that you're here and listening, and I hope that from this whole season that you've got something out of it that's going to help you with whatever it is you want to do. We will be back in the future for season 2. But between now and then, please have a look at everything on our website, guidesnotgurus.com. Ask us as many questions as you want, and we will be back to hopefully answer them. So from myself, Tom, it's see you soon. And from Greg,
namaste.
Namaste. Cheers all. Take care. Bye-bye.